It's the car that was driven by a legend who's still in awe.
There was absolutely nothing like it on the road.
And today, this team of gearheads is going to completely gut this '77 Trans Am.
That makes good TV. I like sparks and noise and grinding and that kind of thing.
And best of all, it's about to be established as timeless.
It's hot. If they released it today as a brand new car, it would be a hot car.
Well, if you think the original was hot, wait until you see what's about to hit the road. This is Celebrity Rides. Burt Reynolds and Year One are building a new Bandit, and to do that, they have to tear an old one apart. But first, they have to be on the lookout.
Breaker 19, Snowman, you out there?
This will be Bandit number 1.
This all started when Kevin King of Year One received one heck of a phone call.
Burt contacted us and said, hey, I'd like to do a Trans Am. And so we started doing some drawings and sending some information back and forth, and he signed off on it, and we started the process, and here we are.
The goal is to make it as cool as the movie car, and in many ways even cooler. But great movie cars are nothing new for the builders at Year One, artists who have created rides for both the movies and the movie stars.
Classic piece of history. There is no doubt. The CB, I don't know if she works. Breaker 19. Now that's a piece right there for all the purists. We're gonna keep that. We're gonna keep that. Looks like we got a minor, a little problem here.
Back in the day, Burt's movie performed a miracle.
The gas crunch of the 70s hit hard. Inflation rates were terrible at the time as well. The last muscle car was easily gone. And then voila, this movie hits. And suddenly there's this really cool car, and then it's everywhere. And all the kids have got to have one. The Pontiac dealerships are just loving life. And it was a hip thing that was probably created largely because of the movie.
Yes, this car arrived in '77 along with a blockbuster film. It was a combo that rocked the world.
The sales of Trans Am went up 600% after the picture. 600%.
And no doubt about it, being paired with one of the world's biggest movie stars didn't hurt either. It was a cool ride, along for the ride.
But it was also a beautiful, stylish car, something that had not been seen for 3 or 4 years. I mean, there were still Firebirds in the 74, 75, 76 time frame, but they wasn't as cool as that one. And plus, they didn't have the movie behind it.
The fully rebuilt cars in this limited production run will have a mix of refurbished old parts and a whole lot of new parts, thanks to the inventory of Year One. There's also going to be a pile of parts off the existing car finding their way to the scrapyard.
There we go. See, something like this, I'm not too worried about. This will get canned, but there's a lot of the T-top stuff that, isn't being reproduced that we will have to save and recondition. But there are some things that you just don't have to worry about. And that happens to be one of them. Another thing that they make every day, a door panel.
In 1977, you could buy a new Trans Am for around $5,500. The special edition models required an additional set of bills. These finished Bandit cars will be a bit more than that, sporting new designs, new parts, and upgrades for today's drivers. For die-hard purists, restored Trans Ams are out there, but they require both a search and a stack of cash.
To find one restored and put back together, the cost of that, $77,000, $78,000, probably run you $20,000 to $35,000. And you couldn't restore one for that, so.
These new Bandits are getting more than restored, and it's all happening under the guidance of Burt, the man who currently has the crew at Year One on their toes. Kevin and his guys are determined to get this right for Reynolds.
The first meeting with Burt was kind of, nerve-wracking to say the least. I mean, here's an iconic movie star with a certain thought in mind of what he might want to do to this car. And of course, us being gearhead guys, we've already got something in mind, and so we've made some drawings, and we're sort of going home from school for the first time, and we're going to open up ourselves to criticism to the guy that's going to sign off on it and say yes or no. So it was a little nerve-wracking. He was easy to work with, had several good ideas, was very frank in things that he didn't like in the drawings, which I think I respect him more for and I need. And I think overall his insights are critical to making the project a success.
Burt knows this isn't a restoration in the purest sense of the word.
I think that the exact idea is to have the old Bandit car, but it's now, you know, it's very now.
Don't go away, Burt and the Bandit will be right back. When we return, our star has an amazing hot rod horror story that just about changed everything.
And I turned it over 12 times.
And this, what was the top film of 1977? Find out when we return to Celebrity Rides. So, just what was the top-grossing movie of 1977? Well, the big champ was Star Wars, a true cultural icon. But in second place for the American box office, a small little film called Smokey and the Bandit. Building a Burt Reynolds Special Edition Trans Am takes work.
Well, now that we're here at this juncture, we might as well go ahead and take off the hood. For me to get the steering column out, I gotta take it apart up top there so we can slide the column out. So I guess we'll get the hood at this juncture.
This Year One team will take this car completely apart, redo the body, and then start putting together a whole new ride. They know every trick this Trans Am will throw at them.
30 years old, you'd be rusty and grumpy too.
I hear you.
This car will be both classic and new.
We probably won't use this column because it's not a tilt, but you know, the hub, and that's probably about the only other thing that'd be any good on it is the hub for it. But it's not a tilt wheel, so we're not really inclined to use a non-tilt wheel. Every car we're going to do is going to have a tilt wheel and, you know, cruise control.
That reminds us to cruise up to the control panels and deal with the dash.
Something we will need to re-keep because we will reuse these. The dash will be a little bit different. It'll still mimic this right here. See, like, now that's something right there, so small, you wouldn't think it'd be hard to get a hold of, but it is. It's not being reproduced. It's gonna need it. Gonna have to keep a hold of it.
Dash clutch valve, we'll definitely keep that. We can send those off and have them redone. We got a service that's offered to rebuild these, and the guy takes them, repaints the face, and recalibrates them, and sends them back to us like new, just like that.
We don't know if the dash is going to be harder to put in than it is to take out, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Burt had nothing to do with the design of the original Trans Am. That's not the case with this new design. These days, Reynolds gives input to Year One's Phil Brewer, a designer who met with the big man himself.
He pretty much approved everything and gave his input, and we kicked it back and forth and came up with the design that we have now.
And that design arrived with Burt wanting many of the classic touches that first rode on the '77 Trans Am, touches such as graphics, colors, and more. Reynolds knows that new styling cues are essential, but he also knows that tradition will be key, and that goes for his personalized nameplate as well.
We kicked around a bunch of ideas and eventually did a little illustration of Burt and then dressed him up like a bandit to make him part of the logo. And it's getting close.
Now that dash, very important piece to get recovered. Actually very, very good condition. So glad to get one of these. There you go. And the deck lid is actually in excellent condition. Usually they get all rusty through the bolts here and all down through this back panel here, and it looks good.
It looks good for a reusable part, but just wait till you see the work straight ahead. Coming up, total destruction. And if you think this ride looks bad, just wait until you hear about Burt's first car.
Got in it and drove 1 block and turned it over 12 times.
Next on Celebrity Rides. Yes, this is the legendary Bandit, the most famous automotive co-star of screen icon Burt Reynolds. A man who got into cars at an early age.
My first car that I ever had, I was 14. My father was the chief of police, and I got in it and drove 1 block and turned it over 12 times. And I crawled out, and he didn't run to the car. He just stood looking. And as I walked past him, he said, "That's the last." So the next one I got, I worked out in the cane fields in Pahokee and Belglade to get money to buy.
Here's a safe bet. A few years after that job in the cane field, Burt Reynolds could buy any car he wanted. He's one of the biggest stars in film history. Dramas, comedies, acting, directing, he was a star who did it all. Burt ruled the box office for 5 straight years in a row. The Year One build team is hard at work, busy assessing the project. At the moment, it's in the early stages, with the crew still taking apart the very first donor car.
There's no door shells made in reproduction, so only thing made in reproduction are skins. We can replace the skin, but that's going to take a lot of work. We don't know if we'll be able to use that or not.
Okay, now on to something even bigger, a stage of this deconstruction that could easily be described as epic.
All right, on these cars, there's a what's called a subframe that goes under, and it's held onto the body of the car by 6 bolts, 3 on this side, 3 on that side. So what we've done is we've separated the fender bolts from the body of the car, and now we're going to go under the car, take loose those 6 bolts, and then we'll be able to roll the subframe, the front clip, nose, the fender, everything just right out from under the car. All right, on these brake lines, since these are readily available, we'll use new ones because these will be corroded with old brake fluid and will have been sitting for a while, so we won't even bother reusing these, so we'll just cut those loose.
Well, those old brake lines aren't putting up much of a fight. But the same can't be said for the bolts that are holding onto the subframe. They're going to require a much more elaborate procedure.
What happened with this bolt, there's a welded cage nut inside this floor pan brace right here, and I'm guessing over the years it's gotten water in it and rusted, and the bolt has actually grabbed the cage nut and broke the welds loose, so the nut is spinning inside this floor pan brace right here.
So it's a process involving a number of steps, starting with Josh and the plasma cutter, creating a small opening in a section of the floor pan. With the cage nut soon out, Josh can temporarily weld it back into place in order to remove the bolt. We're told it's a bit like cooking.
Going from frying chicken to cooking eggs. Frying chicken's kind of loud and it's poppy, and cooking eggs is really smooth. So when the welder sounds like you're frying an egg, that's when you know you're at the right setting. That's going to make me sound like such a redneck.
Isn't that special? There you go, work like a charm. There's your rusty bolt.
When you're tearing a muscle car apart this old, you're likely to find some surprises.
All right, you know what? 30-year-old cars are apt to find almost anything with them. You know, you find money, change, old newspapers. This guy had an aquarium going on this one here, I guess. And it doesn't look like his aquarium's done too well because all his fish are dead, so. Well, it is, man. It is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to find when you get into it. And this right here ain't a lightweight. So anytime you guys are ready to set this thing down.
Go for it. Inner fender looks pretty good other than right there at the front where it's rusted out. That can either be patched or we might come up with a salvageable one off one of the other cars.
It's time to establish the next course of action.
We'll probably get the front of this cleaned up, get all this stuff off, and lift the car back up and take the rear end out of it. And we got a few more trim pieces. Glass will have to come out, but virtually the car's pretty much stripped.
Smoking the Bandit was huge, one of the biggest financial surprises in the history of cinema. But here's a question. When adjusting for inflation, just what is the highest grossing film of all time? We'll find out when we return to Celebrity Rides. If you adjust for inflation and higher ticket prices, today Smoking the Bandit would have earned almost $400 million. But the champ of all time, at $1.3 billion, is gone with the wind. Old 77 and 79 Pontiac Trans Ams are lining up, all eager to be certified movie stars. And that's going to happen as Year One and Burt Reynolds create a limited production run of the Bandit. The first ride has just been taken apart.
Hard part's done, basically. Now it's just cleaning it up, pulling off, you know, the booster, the windshield wiper, the evaporator box, the blower motor, and dropping the rear end out, so y'all might get to see us throw some sparks on that one, because those bolts never come out of the rear shackles. They're always rusted, and you're going to have to pull out the blue wrench on them, but that's fine, though. That makes good TV. I like sparks and noise and grinding and that kind of thing.
New suspension will go in down here, featuring bolt-on subframe connectors, tubular upper control arms, upgraded bushings to firm up the body, and high-performance coil and leaf springs.
We got fire. Fire extinguisher.
Well, the shell is finally free, and now it's time to bring in a very special Year One tool. See, they do things big up here in Georgia.
With a T-top car, I don't want to stick it in the roof panel and pick it up by the roof panel. If it were a hardtop car, I may do that, but this works here for us, so we're going to go with this method here. I'm going to back down towards that aisle, so I give you a little bit of working room to put that cart up underneath it. There's a few minor little things we still got to get off of the car, but for the most part, it's pretty much down to the hull at this point, and we'll clean it up, evaluate all the rust that's on it, get it media blasted, get it primed, and then the next process of that will be paint. And then we'll get it back from the paint shop and put it together.
The last thing to come out is the glass.
As soon as he gets done with that, we'll get out the special tool for removing the glass, which we don't show everybody, but it's a special tool.
That's what I'm talking about. There you go. It's down to nothing. That's it.
In the weeks to come, we'll see the first Bandit continue its metamorphosis. And you gearheads will get ready to take in a little horsepower. Make that a lot of horsepower.
What we get to play with today is GM Performance Parts' new crate motor. It's the LS7.
And just wait until our star gets an eyeful of that engine and the rest of his newly invented Bandit. It's a car that has Burt already planning to redo a stunt or two.
Think of the cornfields you could have tore up with that wheel.
Oh, yeah.
Corners better, sounds better.
And you won't believe the sights at the Bandit Run, the gathering where Burt's ride will make a one-of-a-kind debut.
Fantastic. Dream come true.
And then, of course, there's that moment when two icons are brought together.
That's the one thing about a car. It doesn't know how old you are. It just feels your foot on the accelerator and says, that's something. It's crazy. Oh, it's gorgeous. That's the one thing about a car. It doesn't know how old you are. It just feels your foot on the accelerator and says, that's something. I think it's crazy. Honey, hot. That's too hot. Wow. Lord, Lord. It's gorgeous. That's great. Oh, it's gorgeous. That's the one thing about a car. It doesn't know how old you are. It just feels your foot on the accelerator and says, that's something. I think it's crazy. Honey, hot. That's too hot. Wow. Lord, Lord. It's gorgeous. That's great. Oh, it's gorgeous. That's the one thing about a car. It doesn't know how old you are. It just feels your foot on the accelerator and says, that's something. I think it's crazy. Honey, hot. That's too hot. Wow. Lord, Lord. It's gorgeous. That's great. Oh, it's gorgeous. That's the one thing about a car. It doesn't know how old you are. It just feels your foot on the accelerator and says, that's something. I think it's crazy. Honey, hot. That's too hot. Wow. Lord, Lord. It's gorgeous. That's great. Oh, it's gorgeous. That's the one thing about a car. It doesn't know how old you are. It just feels your foot on the accelerator and says, that's something. I think it's crazy. Honey, hot. That's too hot. Wow. Lord, Lord. It's gorgeous. That's great. Oh, it's gorgeous. That's the one thing about a car. It doesn't know how old you are. It just feels your foot on the accelerator and says, that's something. I think it's crazy. Honey, hot. That's too hot. Wow. Lord, Lord. It's gorgeous. That's great. Oh, it's gorgeous. That's the one thing about a car. It doesn't know how old you are. It just feels your foot on the accelerator and says, that's something. I think it's crazy. Honey, hug. That's too hot. Wow. Lord, Lord. It's gorgeous. That's great. Oh, it's gorgeous. That's the one thing about a car. It doesn't know how old you are. It just feels your foot on the accelerator and says, that son of a gun is crazy. Honey, hug. That's too hot. Wow. Lord, Lord. It's gorgeous. That's great. Oh, it's gorgeous. That's the one thing about a car. It doesn't know how old you are. It just feels your foot on the accelerator and says, that son of a gun is crazy. Honey, hug. That's too hot. Wow. Lord, Lord. It's gorgeous. That's great. Oh, it's gorgeous. That's the one thing about a car. It doesn't know how old you are. It just feels your foot on the accelerator and says, that son of a gun is crazy.